Hello and welcome to another spooky episode of Queer Peer Reviews, where we review queer media good, bad, and ugly. I am your host Jamie, and today with me is my co-host Zach.
Here at Queer Peer Reviews, we'll be reviewing your favorite and not so favorite films, shows, and video games that feature queer characters, themes, and more.
So today we're going to be reviewing another gay film that was canceled by its network. Actually, no, not a film, it is a TV show, but it is 2022's Netflix original series, First Kill. I am taking these out. So the show takes place in Savannah, Georgia. It has 8 episodes, and it revolves around 2 main characters, Juliette, who is a vampire, and Calliope, who is a monster hunter. So the series actually starts off with this really spicy dream that Juliette is having about Calliope, who is her crush that goes to the same high school as her. Little does Juliette know that Calliope is a monster hunter whose whole purpose in life is to hunt down these monsters and other things like werewolves, zombies, and other stuff. And Calliope has no idea that she is going to school with a vampire. So Juliette is the daughter of the DA, who nobody in town knows is a vampire. She has a sister named Eleanor, who is the perfect sister. And they also have a brother that they disown because he was quote-unquote crazy, which we get into a little bit later in the series. She has a best friend named Ben. They both actually dated when they were kids,
right.
And that's how they both found out they were gay, because after they had their first kiss, they're like, nah, this is not for me.
Just like me and my ex-girlfriend.
Ditto.
So Cal comes from a long legacy of monster hunters that are part of this thing called the Guild, which is supposed to be a secret organization that hunts monsters and is essentially the reason why humans don't know about monsters anymore. Cal's family consists of her mom and dad, who are both trained hunters, as well as her brothers, one of which is a half-brother, Theo, and her full brother, Apollo. Yes, they all have Greek names. I guess they're just into that in that family.
And also, if you could have not already guessed already, Juliette's name kind of resembles Romeo and Juliet, which there are a lot of references to Romeo and Juliet.
They're doing a play at the school. It's just all over the place.
2 families forbidden to love each other because they're very different. Yeah, you get the point. So during one day at school, Juliette actually approaches Calliope to talk to her. She winds up knocking these blood pills out of her pocket because Juliette is super against killing people and feeding off humans.
Right. It's established in the first episode that when they're growing up, vampires can take the blood pills, but they reach a certain age, they have to start feeding on humans and actually have to, as the name of the show says, make their first kill in order to control their vampire side.
But yeah, so during this interaction of Juliette and Calliope, it's kind of awkward at first because she kind of has this gay panic. She's like, ooh, what do I say to this girl? So she winds up inviting Calliope to this party at one of the popular kids' houses.
Ben's secret straight boyfriend who has a girlfriend. One of the things about that scene I really like is we see it initially from Juliette's perspective, and it's the whole awkwardness and her just flirting with the girl, being very normal about it. And then you have it later on, they redo it with Calliope, and you see her picking up on all the hints that Juliette is a vampire. And it's just interesting how Juliette doesn't want to take part in her family's legacy, whereas Calliope wants to dive right into it.
And she wants to be the greatest monster hunter who's ever lived.
Right.
So later on at the party, Juliette and Ben arrive. Juliette winds up making eye contact with Calliope, and I noticed this little thing while they're kind of making eye contact. There's a song that's playing in the background. It's called Slumber Party. All you people on TikTok, I'm sure you've heard the song, but the lyrics that are playing as soon as they go to the shot of them making eye contact is, I gave your girlfriend cunnilingus on my couch. And I just, I thought it was very fitting to that.
In case you didn't know, they were lesbian.
After that, they play spin the bottle. Ben winds up rigging the game so it lands right on Calliope, and Julia and her go into the closet together to do some stuff.
I will say about this scene, I really enjoyed it. The one thing that was surprising was, why do they have so many cherries in that room? What do you need all the cherries for?
That's how you know it's a rich person's house, because I think it was a pantry, not a closet.
Right.
And it just had everything, jars of full of all these different foods everywhere.
Especially cherries, which I like is the red theme for the blood, and cherries being a sensual food item a lot of times, in depictions of it. So it made sense. It was just so many cherries.
So many cherries, and they got to witness this kind of spicy scene that happened.
Yeah.
They started making out. Juliet got lifted onto a counter.
Yeah, they were going at it.
They were really
having
going
a
at
grand
it.
old time.
And then Juliet kind of just lost control of herself in the heat of the moment. Fangs came out, sunk them right into Calliope's neck. And that's when
we flip over to Calliope's side. So Calliope's getting ready to go to school. She heads off, and the entire time she is, internally monologuing about wanting to be a monster hunter, wanting to prove herself to her family. And during that time, she has her interactions with Juliette, and she starts to realize, especially after the interaction where Juliette drops the blood pills, who and what Juliette is. So when she gets the invite to the party, she goes with the full intention of killing Juliette, ends up getting into that makeout sesh, having a grand old time, then gets fangs put in her neck, and out comes the stake in the heart.
boom.
Right in the chest.
So that immediately carries into the next episode. Juliet wakes up. Usually when vampires get staked in the heart, they die.
Just turn to ash. Yeah, they're done. Right, which we have to mention, during all of that, a girl is found dead, Ashley. Her liver is ripped out, her body's kind of mutilated a bit, like she got full on attacked by something. So Calliope gets home. She tells her mom that she had her first kill, but that the vampire didn't die properly, and her mom is like, that's weird. Okay, we'll talk about it in the morning, because she's also cleaning up from a monster attack that just happened on their house. And then over at Juliette's side.
Yeah, so Juliette arrives home, and turns out her father, the DA, got a phone call from the police saying, your daughter left her phone at the house where this girl was just murdered. So that kind of starts this whole thing with her family saying, so it was Juliette who killed that girl at the party. And she doesn't deny it because she doesn't want to admit what really happened, that she just got staked in the heart by somebody and didn't die.
Common teenage party things.
Yeah, common teenage party things. But yeah, so her family gets super excited because there's something called a Consecration Ceremony when a vampire gets their first kill. And they're like, okay, we could start the process on this now because you just got your first kill. You killed that girl, Ashley.
So early the next morning, Calliope's mom comes, wakes her up and says, all right, show me how you killed the vampire. Let's see it. And Calliope shows her. Mom says, your form is absolutely perfect. Vampire should have died. Starts to realize maybe not a normal vampire, maybe a mystery going on in the town of Savannah.
So that's when Calliope and Juliet's families both go to Ashley's vigil to pay their respects, of course. Juliet winds up going inside of the school, and Calliope follows her and reveals, hey, you should have died back there, blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna finish the job. They wind up chasing each other onto the roof, have this big fight up there, and then
Juliet's blood ends up getting on Calliope and paralyzes her, so she's forced to just lie there on the roof as Juliet's running away I'm sorry.
But yeah, the next day, they're called to the principal's office with their mothers to be like, why were you guys on the roof? And they kind of just make it this whole thing she was just upset, I was just trying to comfort her. And then that's when the two moms start talking to each other and invite each other to this family dinner.
Right, but you can tell they're starting to realize that each other, not the best of friends, might be mortal enemies.
So then we move on to episode 3. That one starts off with another dream, but it is actually Calliope's dream instead of Juliette's. And they figure out that they're now connected somehow.
Right, because Juliette had bit Calliope.
So yeah, they're dreaming of each other / are in the same dream together of each other. So yeah, after Calliope wakes up, she starts training with her family to do this whole raid on the mansion where the legacy vampires are about to hold a consecration ceremony for Juliette.
Yeah, which means every legacy vampire from all over is going to be there. Perfect time to strike and take them down.
So during all this, Calliope actually questions, are the hunters the actual monsters? Because all the monsters out there could just be harmless and living normal lives, and we're the ones trying to go out and kill them.
Yeah, and unfortunately her best friend that she tells this to is a snitch, and she gets taken off the raid, so she's left behind with some really creepy guild guy that deserves what's coming to him. So Eleanor, Juliette's lovely sister, ends up kidnapping Calliope and is like, hey, just drink her blood. Drink her and kill her so you can have your first kill, so you don't disgrace the family, so that I can finally, at some point, become the keeper of the snake totem and become ruler of the family, essentially, when that time comes. Juliette does not want to, obviously. And then the raid starts.
Yes, so all the Burns family, members of the guild, they start running and ruin the whole ceremony, start stabbing everybody. I got like really worried because I'm like, wow, they just killed off this entire group of people.
Legit, but then turns out the spears don't work and the vampires get back up and start just going at the hunters. And that best friend from earlier, Tessa, her parents end up getting killed in the conflict.
Cook confronts Calliope, threatens to take her into the guild, and that's when Juliette pops out of nowhere. They fight the guy knocks out, they stuff him into the trunk of their car, and they go to Ben for help. And that's when Juliette finally gets her first kill.
And scares the hell out of Ben.
And I believe after that they bury his body.
Very poorly bury his body because it gets found later and they're called right back into the principal's office. Sebastian, Juliette's dad, comes to try and collect them both. They run away. They end up going to the school where they sleep in the Romeo and Juliet set because we're very on brand with First Kill.
And during the remainder of the school day, the monster alarm goes off, and there is a zombie that winds up attacking the school, which is actually Ashley's body.
Which I feel the need to say, they didn't say in the beginning that humans knew about monsters, and then they introduced the monster alarm, and it's like, oh, okay, this is a thing now.
I was so confused. I was like, oh, that's the monster alarm.
Right.
And I'm like, wait.
Every standard issue school monster alarm.
Yeah, so like Zach just said, like they didn't make it clear that people were aware of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a zombie comes to school, winds up killing a student, and that's when Calliope gets her first kill, which is her, I think she decapitated.
Yeah, she just cut her head off.
Yeah.
So Oliver ends up turning up at the school, reveals that he's the one who, he and his witch girlfriend made Ashley into a zombie, and tells Juliette that he's trying to get revenge against Eleanor for something that she did to him when they were kids, and that if Juliette helps him, he will have his witch girlfriend make her human so that her and Calliope can live together happily.
So the following day, the feds come to the school and start questioning everybody about the zombie and the murder. Did they know it was a zombie?
Yes, I believe so, because they keep like ma'am gets formed and all that.
Oh, ma'am. But yeah, so they question Calliope and Juliette because the security footage shows that they were running through the halls at the time, and like after all this this drama and stuff that happens, their parents tell them like, hey, like you guys, like you cannot be together, you cannot see each other anymore. And Calliope's family performs this severance on her, which is essentially like...
It's meant to destroy the bond that Juliette had accidentally created when she bit Calliope. During that whole ritual, Theo ends up seeing a weird vision of his mom, who he learns was apparently killed by a legacy vampire too. Later that night, Calliope goes to bed and, thinking that the bond is broken, thinks that Juliette is visiting her in her room, where it's revealed, nope, the bond is still there and they are still very much connected.
Ben's mom, it's really weird. He calls his mom Bunny, and everyone calls his mom Bunny.
Is that her name? Can it be her name? I want it to be her name.
Yeah, I was just a little confused why everyone was calling her Bunny and like Mom sometimes. It was just a little weird.
Yeah.
But she winds up forming this group called MAM, Mothers Against All Monsters, which I feel like was a reference to like MAGA.
Yeah, it was definitely a reference to like anti-gay groups, racist groups, that kind of thing. It was just very funny because I'm like, you're the mother of a gay son, but you're going against, I guess, monsters. I can understand it still.
But yeah, so she forms this whole group. They decide if the DA isn't gonna do anything to stop these monsters, we're gonna do something. So they wind up going to his house and vandalizing like the garage. They put down with DA, whatever their last name was, I forgot what it is. But yeah, and then we also see that Clayton Cook's body is found. Dun dun dun.
Juliette ends up going over to Calliope's house, and together they reveal to Calliope's parents that Juliette was the one that killed Cook. Obviously, Cal's parents aren't thrilled that Juliette's in their home, but realizing that Juliette killed Cook to save Cal, they come to the conclusion they owe her and decide to come to a temporary truce with Juliette's parents and destroy the evidence that would tell the police that Juliette was the one who killed Cook.
And this is actually like one of the first times you see Calliope's family act more like parents than they do monster hunters, which I really appreciated.
No, it's interesting because, in the beginning of the show, they very much were for the guild. Everything's about the guild, our family's for the guild. And then as it goes on, you see them each start to pick family over the guild and the repercussions that come with that.
So while the Burns family is harboring Juliette and Calliope upstairs, the guild arrives at their household with silver chains, saying that they know that the person who killed Cook is Cal's vamp.
Luckily, Calliope and Juliette end up skedaddling out of there before they get caught, end up running or trying to run to Oliver for help, but on the way are stopped by a police checkpoint where they're using a silver pure silver item to test people if they're monsters.
A coin.
Yeah, it was a coin. And I love that. I love police checkpoint for monsters. That's very...
Because it's essential.
Yeah.
Essential in every town.
So they just barely pass the test by Juliette basically like hiding her burning flesh. But the police officer isn't fooled. She thinks something's up, ends up escorting them back to Juliette's house and convinces everyone that Calliope is the vampire.
Which I don't understand because Calliope held the coin and was completely unfazed.
And was fine. Yeah, it's like, I don't know where she got that notion from, whereas Juliette was just there like, I'm fine, I'm fine. So yeah, Juliette's family is like, yeah, no, go ahead, go out there, leave us alone. They'll find out you're not a monster. But Calliope's like, hey, if they find out I'm not a monster, they're gonna check you guys next, and you have a ton of records of legacy vampires here. Guess they'll figure it out, huh? So Juliette's family's like, we need to help.
Ma'am is now outside with all these picket signs like, bring her out, down with the monster. And Ben goes to confront his mom like, what are you doing? Like, this is so stupid. And he learns that all of Ma'am believes that Calliope is the vampire.
Right, and I don't know if this happens later or earlier, but I do remember there was a moment where Ben told his mom, he's like, hey, if I was a vampire, like, what would you do then? And she flat out tells him, I would kill you. And I'm like, oh, all right, you're committed to the cause.
So Juliette starts speaking with her mom, and her mom starts saying, like, she cannot stay here, you cannot be together, like, this needs to end, because, like, none of this would have happened if you two were never together. And that's when Calliope stands up to Juliette's mom, and they have this cute little quote where she goes, is my heart safe with you forever? And it was just so, butterflies.
During all of this going on, Apollo and Theo are trying to look for more information on Theo's mom, so they try to go to Eleanor, who may have information. Apollo had been kind of flirting with Eleanor prior, so he goes to try and talk to her. Theo gets nervous, ends up going in, freaks out and tries to take Eleanor down. Apollo and Theo end up fighting her, and Eleanor ends up tricking Apollo into stabbing Theo. So Theo's left bleeding on the bathroom floor, and Eleanor, using her weird memory powers, erases their memory, so they have no idea why Theo is bleeding out on the bathroom floor.
But I just, like, the thing that didn't make sense to me is that they're, like, super highly trained, like, monster hunters. They know that the stake goes in the heart, but why did he go for the stomach, which essentially is why Theo got stabbed?
Well, and the other thing is, they also know Eleanor's a legacy vampire, so they know that stabbing her it would temporarily knock her down, but it's not gonna kill her.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, he still should have gone for the heart instead of the stomach.
Oh, absolutely.
Things would have definitely changed. But yeah, so we go into the final episode, which starts off with Calliope and Juliette going to that bar where this all happened, and they find Theo dead on the ground. Apollo's like a hot mess. Yeah. And he just has no memory of what happened. So Calliope and Apollo flee, they go home, and Juliette is kind of left there to clean up the mess.
Well, but what I liked about it was Juliette literally turned to Calliope and was like, hey, I will handle this, go. Like, you have more important crap to deal with right now with what just happened. But then they go home, and turns out Theo's there eating dinner all happy with Mom and Dad, and Calliope and Apollo look like they just literally saw a ghost.
Like, what? At first, I thought it was one of those things where, like, I thought it was Eleanor. I thought, like, Eleanor did some sort of trick where she, like, took his body. I thought it was a vision
or something. Yeah, like some weird trick or something.
Yeah.
And then he starts having issues eating the food, and you start to piece together, you're not human anymore, are you?
So it turns out that Juliette turned Theo in the
accidentally.
Accidentally, which we talk about a little later in the last episode. So yeah, after all this happens, Juliette is back home. She confronts Eleanor. They get into this whole argument where they basically become dead to each other, which now triggers Juliette's decision. Hey, I'm going to help out Oliver. I'm going to take Eleanor down. The police wind up arresting Eleanor, and she goes down for all the things she did.
And we learned the reason why Oliver was going after all this time is because when they were growing up, Eleanor would use her weird mind powers to make Oliver do sadistic stuff like killing their psychiatrists or camp counselors and make the family believe that Oliver was this sadistic sociopath, where in reality it was always Eleanor.
So eventually the Burns family finds out that Theo has turned, and their instincts kick in automatically. They're like, okay, we have to take him down. Well, that's just the dad. The mom is like, we can't, he's our son, we can't kill him. But yeah, Theo winds up escaping. As soon as Juliette arrives to their house, they have this whole fight, and that's when Juliette
reveals that she turned Theo. And Cal is understandably not happy with it. Juliette was apparently trying to just put Theo out of his misery, but in the process turned him. And Cal is like, if you had any inkling that that was a possibility, why on earth would you turn a monster hunter into a vampire?
Because he became the very thing he hated, and his mother was also killed by a legacy vampire.
Right.
So this leads into Juliette and Calliope's biggest fight of the show. She tells her to go away, and Juliette tells Calliope that she loves her. But it doesn't matter anymore. Calliope says, I'm going to do everything I can to figure out how to kill legacy vampires, and I'm going to kill you.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Very sad dun, dun, dun. So after Juliette and Calliope split ways, we then move on to Calliope's mom, and turns out that she helped Theo escape, and turns out that she took Theo to Oliver's house.
Yep. She figured that that would be the safest place for him, and it turns out Oliver this whole time has been building a monster army, so he's more than happy to welcome Theo into the folds. And that's how the season ends, with us seeing the three of them standing with their monster army ready to take over the town.
And that's it. We get nothing more because it got canceled.
Yeah.
It's the biggest. I mean, I would have been very happy if they ended it in a way where it's like Calliope and Jules.
Right, at least some sort of satisfying ending, but like all the storylines they set up, nothing concluded really. You had the mom and dad on Juliette's side trying to deal with, did we mention Grandma's death?
Grandma's dead.
Grandma's dead. Juliette's dad ends up eating her in a moment of rage because Eleanor decides she doesn't want to marry a wealthy legacy vampire. Grandma's like, you're marrying a legacy vampire, and dad's like, I'm gonna eat you.
And he just
gobbles her up, and then the mom walks in and is like, did you eat my mother? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, cool. And that's about it. Like, they just move on.
Thank you. If you, like, as Zach said, there's a lot of storylines that just could not continue. This is my notebook. This is the most notes I've ever taken for an episode of Queer Peer Reviews. That's how much information they gave us throughout 8 episodes. And it's just so frustrating that it got canceled. And it had so much built up.
It was like, we skipped over a lot of details that they threw at us. And the fact that there wasn't any conclusiveness for any of it really is just a shame.
Damn you, Netflix. All right, so let's get down to the ratings here at Queer Peer Reviews. We'll be basing all of our ratings out of 5 categories, each out of 10, for a grand total of 100 from both of us.
Let's start with representation. How well did First Kill portray its queer characters and themes?
So for representation, I gave it a 7.9.
And I gave it 8.7.
Nice. So, I mean, the whole movie did revolve around a lesbian relationship. Which I appreciate, like, all the gay panic they had. They when they were in the high school, they also talked about like how they came out to their family. So I really appreciated that. I feel like there could have been more, like, to maybe talk about their sexualities, but like then again, like, it's not the end of the world because like they both had very established like their own sexualities, and they also had Ben, which was a gay character, and his whole thing with like falling in love with a straight guy and like that whole drama. But I think they did a really good job, and like I said, the gay panic gave me gay panic.
No, I can agree with that. I certainly think everything, like, it was a lot of storylines that queer people can relate to, like falling in love with a straight guy or coming to terms with your sexuality by dating another gay, like a gay man dating a gay woman and realizing like, hey, this is not what we want, kind of thing. One of the things I really liked that you had said with coming out to the families is like, it was clear from the beginning that it was never the issue of dating a woman. It was the issue of dating your mortal enemy, vampires and hunters kind of thing. So I like that it was never like she's a vampire and a woman kind of deal.
All right, so let's move on to our next topic, which is the closet scale. If you and I were both still in the closet, how likely would first kill help us come out?
So for the closet scale, we give it...
I give it an... Ooh.
What did you give it?
I gave it an 8.
Oh, I gave it a 5.6.
You go first then.
So I gave it a lower scale only because, like, the show itself never dealt with coming out of the closet in a queer sense. It kind of touched on it in the way that Juliette had to, like, talk with Ben about being a vampire in the sense of, like, accepting something you didn't know about your friend, but I don't want to, because she is also gay, I don't want to put that as a placeholder. Like, it showed great representation and acceptance of already knowing, but there was never a moment of, like, having to come out. So as far as, like, giving an example to people of how to come out to friends and all that, I don't think it did a great job, but that also wasn't what it was going out to accomplish. So that's why, like, I'm able to, like, accept that, but it's just I don't feel like it represented coming out of the closet as a gay person, like, too well.
That's true, yeah. I mean, I wasn't really sure what to give it because, like you said, it didn't have any sort of, like, scenes of them, like, having to come out and struggling with their sexuality. It was more of, like, they already had that established. I guess I gave it a higher score because they didn't have to come out, type of thing.
No, that's good.
Yeah, their parents were more concerned with, oh, you're dating a vampire. It's not like you're dating a woman. It's, oh my gosh, a monster and a monster hunter together.
Right.
And then the whole thing with, like, Ben, his mom, and then, like, them discovering their sexualities, like, together, I thought that was pretty wholesome. So, I mean, actually, I'm gonna give it a 7 because, like, it is a 7 now. But yeah, it didn't make me not want to come out of the closet.
No, that's fair. I can agree with that one. Next up is Originality.
All right, so for Originality, I gave it a 5.7.
Oh, I gave it a 5.
Nice. But yeah, I mean, I feel like both of us kind of have the same reasoning. The whole Romeo and Juliet thing.
Yeah.
Naming your main character Juliet, having them do Romeo and Juliet as their school play. I feel like
it's very on the nose.
Very
and
on the nose.
It's also not the first vampire falling in love with a vampire hunter media type thing.
That's true. Is it the first one with lesbians?
That might be true. It might be. I'd have to look just because a lot of vampire lore actually starts off with sapphic portrayals and all that. Yeah, but I don't know. It was original in the sense of, like, it had. I never heard of a shambler, that monster they had, like, the second episode. So that was something original in terms of, like, monster creation. And some of the things they did with the monsters and the portrayal of the legacy vampires was different. But, like, the tying it back to Adam and Eve was something that vampires have done before. Like, a lot of it was stuff pulled from other media that, although they did a great job with the interpretation, it wasn't its own original thing that they came up with themselves, kind of deal.
I mean, it doesn't have to be original for me to like it.
Right,
but
right.
Still, I've seen it so many times over and over again. I just go lesbians. We take the representation where we get it. So next up is the writing.
So for writing, we give it.
I gave it a 6.
I gave it a 6.5.
Nice. I think we're pretty much on the same page with, like, these last two categories. But yeah, I mean, they gave a lot of information, which I feel like would have set it up for a really good season 2, because there's a lot of things I want to know about.
Yeah.
But it also ties in with the whole originality. Not that original, so I feel like there wasn't much they did to stray from making it more original with the writing.
Yeah.
The dialogue that Calliope and Juliet had, I really enjoyed it.
No, I absolutely. I was gonna say, their dialogue, their moments were like the high points of the writing. Like, very much, it was clear that they were focusing on that. But a lot of the other stuff, like, I almost wish Oliver's Monster Army thing was held off for if there was a second season, because it was just so much right after the next nonstop that, like, not only did Juliet and Cal's relationship sometimes get overshadowed by it, but you also had just a lot being thrown at the audience. So it might be the reason why people may have been turning off before the final episodes, because you get to, like, episode 6 or 7 and you're like, what is going on right now?
I mean, for one, I did appreciate the lots of, like, storylines, but, like, I could understand why it would get confusing for some people.
And last but not least, our overall feelings towards the show.
So for our overall feelings towards First Kill, I gave it a 9.
I gave it a 7.
Yeah, maybe it's because I'm a woman-loving woman. I love the representation where we can get it. I had a lot of moments where I got a little giddy. I'm so mad of how they ended it and that there isn't going to be a season 2, because I would have been there for it.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why my score is lower, just because the ending we got wasn't a satisfying one. Like, there's no, I mean, we said it earlier, there's no real, like, conclusion for any of the storylines that were set up. So if we got a season 2 and we were able to see those through, I would have probably given it a higher rating. But I enjoyed it. And actually, the funny thing you said, like, you didn't think it was corny. I thought it was corny at times, but I liked the corniness. I was into the corny.
I am into the corny as well. But so you're saying, like, your 7 is more towards Netflix itself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's Netflix's fault. I feel like it's like, as a standalone season, it definitely, like I said, needed a more conclusive ending. So if they knew going into it, that not that they would, that it was going to be one season, maybe they could have done something with it. But if they had gone to season 2, I feel like it would have done that. I feel like it would have seen its full potential.
All right, so now it's time for our QPR total. Our straight ally Trayvon's going to help us out with that. Trayvon, hit us with that gay shit.
A little bit more. You could have got a 69, but it's 68.4.
Ah, so close.
Dang, 68.4, really?
68.4 would be a C minus.
Aw.
It's a passing grade.
Aw, I'm disappointed in our score. Let's do that. Let's redo the whole show. But yeah, C minus for First Kill. Maybe if they renewed it for season 2, would have gotten higher, because that second season would have made us feel nice and satisfied. But even with a C minus, very enjoyable. I think you guys should watch it.
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead and go watch the good lesbian love.
Lesbians. All right, but anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. In the description below, we'll have links to our social media pages, as well as the Trevor Project and other things you guys can donate to. But yeah, stay tuned for some more spooky episodes this month. Thanks for watching.